Hey, what up, everybody? It's Vel here, and today I am finally putting out the video for my Inquisitor Mjolner build. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over the pros and the cons, as well as the important pieces of gear that make the build really, really special. If you've enjoyed the video, if you've played the build before, if you're considering it, definitely leave a comment below. I'd really appreciate that, and let's get right down into it. So let's start off with the pros. Pro number one, it is absolutely 100% a comfortable and fast clearing builds. It is great for doing simulacrums, for doing legions, for going into the Krangle zone and clearing all that. It is very comfortable for all of these. The second pro is that it does not cost a lot of investment for you to do the endgame Awakener 8 or 9. All of that is pretty cheap. It is also a league start friendly build, so you can league start it with Stormbrand and honestly level all the way up to 90, all the while picking up your pieces of gear. It is immune to shock, freeze, chill, ignite, and corrupting blood, hinder, and maim. It's basically immune to like a large majority of elements. It has massive defensive layers, a large amount of block, life leech, overleech, and percent life on block. Now, maybe this is a little overkill, but honestly, when it came to Scourge League and how hard they slap, it was nice to have all of these extra layers. Oh, and as well as 18k to 24k armor, actually all the way up to 29k when you use your Flask as well. It is a lot of armor to deal with all the physical damage of Scourge. And in my case, this is a big pro for me. It has a lot of room for upgrades. Now, the part I don't want to talk about, the cons. The one thing about cast on crit is that it has a lot of annoying things that will affect it in map mods. So when it comes to expedition and certain map mods, like you want to make sure that you're reading your map mods. Like maybe you don't take the reduced critical amount plus the enfeeble plus the -10 max. Like all of those things may be too dangerous. However, if you decide to take an enfeeble and like crit and crit multi, there's no issue in this, right? Just be careful. There's a lot of different things in a cast on crit build that could affect you. Now you can do physical reflect, but you definitely cannot do elemental reflect unless you use the unless you use the sextant. So I would say it can be a bit expensive as well on the top end. Like there's a lot of places where you can min-max this build. Now, let's just get the essence of the build out of the way, right? The number one piece of gear that we're going to talk about first, the Mjolner. Now, this is the weapon of the build, all right? You can make no better weapon. And while it takes a ton of strength, like 412 strength and 300 int to wear it, it is actually one of the only remaining triggers in the game that doesn't cost any mana. Now, when it comes to, I think Cost Freeze and both Pose Pen now cost mana, but Mjolnir still does not. Next, the shields. Now, this one's a crafting project. Ideally, you want to get yourself 30% reservation efficiency, as well as percent life gain on block, and have an open prefix for you to craft your +2 to socketed support gems. With that +2 to socketed, it allows you to turn your level 4 Enlighten into a level 6 Enlighten, and that gives you the room to add Tempest Shield, which gives you your shock immunity. Crown of the Inward Eye. This is a easy choice, and it gives us a lot of options for lab enchant. So for this build, you can either go with a reservation efficiency so you don't have to run 2 Enlightens. You can go for a additional ball for ball lightning, which is personally my choice because I like it for clear. Or you can go for arc chains and additional time, which is really decent for your single target. It's really whatever is up to you. And the nice thing is that Crown of the Inward Eyes are up really early with a lot of different enchants, so they're not too expensive. Next is your chest piece. For this build, I went with a Ferrule's Fur. This is a great chest piece because it allows the build to have aspect of the cat costing no reservation, which keeps us at max frenzy and max power charges. And not only that, but it's like a really good corrupt target as well for, you can go for the +1 max res, you can go with the reduced crits, the increased flat percent damage, whatever you want to go with there. It has a lot of options and a lot of room for your play style. Next, we're going to talk about the gloves. For gloves, you have two choices. You can go with Shaper's Touch, and honestly, it's a great place for, again, corrupts. You don't have to worry about any more accuracy whatsoever, and they're really cheap. But ideally, at the end build, you're going to want to get yourself some unnerved gloves with whatever res you can, and preferably an open prefix to craft on damage while leeching, because the damage while leeching is massive. If you want to push over the top, you can definitely use an Awakened Orb to get Unnerve and Calling Strike for that little bit of extra boss comfort. For boots, rare boots are really the play here. They're not that hard to make. Like, for the rare boots that I use, they have Tailwind and cooldown recovery. I made a pair by alt-rolling on my Tailwind, and then I grabbed a pair of eye level 86 Shaper boots and crafted the cooldown recovery on it. Both of them with alts. Then I used a Woke Orb, smashed those two together, and because both the Tailwind and cooldown recovery are suffixes, I was able to benchcraft lock suffixes and hit a Veil Orb on it to avail and hit a Veil Orb on it, and I managed to get the move speed and cannot be chilled. Now, this is the way I crafted them. I don't know if there's an easier way to craft it. This is just the way that I did it, and it was honestly, for what they are, it's really cheap, and it's huge profit. Huge profit later if I ever sell everything off for this build, but honestly, I love the build so much, I doubt I'm going to sell the stuff. Since the changes to Delve, all Uprisings have been pretty cheap, so since we use a few different auras here, you can definitely go for Wrath, or you can go for Zealotry, or, I mean, in the best in slot thing, it's going to be Determination. However, since Determination's crazy expensive, I personally just went for a Zealotry and called it good. Rings, we have 4 major things we're going to want to find between 2. We're going to want high accuracy and strength. We're going to want Assassin's Mark and life gain on spell hit. So for me, I got the Assassin's Mark and life gain on spell hit by putting Aetheric Fossils and Pristine Fossils together and just slamming it on a Shaper ring. And it did not take me long at all to make this. It was actually really cheap, so I imagine it's not that bad of a crafting project. And it's probably going to be one of those things that's cheaper for you to make than it is for you to buy, to be completely honest. And for the other ring, I just wanted to make sure that my accuracy was topped up and tried to take off as much pressure of strength on my jewels as possible. So I looked for a high strength ring with accuracy and then filled out the rest of it with whatever kind of res and life I could get. For the belt, no surprise here. We're just going to use a Stygian belt, either Hunter or Elder, preferably, so we can get life, percent life, and resists. That's all we're really looking for. Somewhere in this build, we are going to need aspect of the cat, so the belt is always a good spot where the aspect can go. Really, any place you have an open suffix, you can just throw down that aspect. Jewels in this build are big damage. In this slot, you're going to be looking for these small bits of strength or dexterity that you might be missing for the build, as well as crit multi and life. You can also get resist here too, but it will cost you some damage. And eventually, you know, if you want to get really wild, you can get yourself triple multi-jewels, but double multi will do just fine. For Flask, the only things I really want to say here is obviously we're a cast on crit build, so a Bottled Faith is the right call. Until you have that Bottled Faith, you can just rock a Diamond Flask in that spot, and there's an empty flask spot in Poe for you to pick whatever life flask that you like to wear. Glorious Vanity. Now, this is a pretty big one for us. We are looking for the General Ahuna because she gives us our Overleach, which is called Immortal Ambition. Essentially, it is another massive layer of defense for us. So not only do we have Overleach, we have big block and life gain on block. Just really adding the extra beef for us. It will only fit well at 2 different spots in the tree, but really you want to put it up at the top spot of the tree in between Witch and Templar, where the elemental equilibrium is. Energized Armor. This is a cheap jewel that gives us about 6k armor, and it's a really great corrupt target for that corrupting blood I was talking about. This has to be one of my cheapest Watcher's Eyes I've ever bought, since it seems like nobody really cares about this combination. Right now, I'm going for lightning damage with Wrath, as well as increased damage on consecrated ground with Zealotry. Since we're an Inquisitor, this just makes the most sense. There is one thing I do want to mention about the large cluster jewel. Now, when you are looking for your 3 passive cluster, beware, because it uses one notable that also works for cold. You want to make sure that you have lightning passives and not cold passives. Those cold passives are going to be completely worthless to you. They're just, yeah, so definitely watch out when you're looking for all your notables. Make sure it says lightning as your small passives. That's going to be really important. As well as it has Doriani's Lesson on there, which is going to be another 0.2% of elemental damage as life leech. Another way of getting your life leech and layers of defense. So I hope you guys enjoyed this build video. If you're playing the builds, let me know what you think. If you watched all the way to the end, definitely consider subscribing. I hope you all have wonderful holidays, and I will see you all later.